our General Secretary, Grady, pointed out a couple of days ago that these will be the biggest strikes in the history of higher education in the UK, both in terms of the number of staff coming out, the number of institutions. We've got 74 universities out on strike at the moment, but also in terms of the number of days. We're striking for 14 days over the next few weeks in response to the fact that the employers have refused to make a decent offer on pay and on those other three fights that I talked about on casualisation, workload and equalities. So we've got a really unprecedented scale of strike action in higher education in the UK in recent history.
Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, the union makes us strong.
Well, I'm here today because I'm striking. Our job security at the Montfort University is not very good. And there are two motives that have drawn me to come today. The first one is equal pay, and the second one is the level of workload we have to face. Now, if you unpick these two lines, for me it's more than the numbers and the statistics that Vice Chancellors use or even the union report. For me, it's more the daily practice and the everyday experience. So the fact that I see my female colleagues struggling in finding a work balance, situation in their life, and especially those that have childcare responsibilities, and how disadvantaged they are in relation to women who don't have kids or in relation to their male colleagues, then that's something that's quite striking. And because of this inequality, then that's also reflected in the pay. So there are lots of policies, there are lots of practices on our everyday work that it's not helping to level the payment between male and female.
When do we want it? Now! What do we want? When do we want it? Now! What do we want?
We're here today because we've had enough. We've had 10 years of increasing workloads, increased pressure on staff. Our working conditions are students' learning conditions. So the pressure that's on us translates into a bad experience for students in their classrooms. We don't want that. We want the best for our students. We want to give them the best possible education that they can get. In order to do that, we need to be properly resourced, properly supported, and we don't need workloads that are as excessive as they are at the present time. On top of that, our pay has been cut by 20% in real terms over the last 10 years. The current pay offer doesn't keep pace with inflation. So they're continuing to cut our wages. Well, we're not going to put up with that. And I'll tell you what else we're not going to put up with. Here we are standing opposite the Stephen Lawrence Research Centre. And yet, on average, for every £1,000 that a white lecturer earns, a black lecturer only earns £935. That is absolutely disgusting. And it's not good enough for our Vice-Chancellor to say, we're not as racist as other universities because the pay gap isn't as big as other universities. Any pay gap is completely unacceptable. It's unacceptable that our women lecturers are paid less on average than our male lecturers. Something has got to be done about this, and we want it dealt with now. We've also got the situation of casualisation. And again, it's true, we don't have 0 hours contracts and we pay the living wage. But we have too many people being put onto part-time temporary contracts who should be on full-time permanent contracts. So we want that dealt with as well. So these are the issues that we're fighting on. We don't believe that we can stand back anymore and allow them to continuously downgrade our working conditions. We're here now to stand up for ourselves and also to stand up for our students. After all, our working conditions are their learning conditions.
So I'm here today visiting the DMU UCU branch and the University of Leicester UCU branch because they are two of the 74 UCU branches that are involved in national strike action, and the national strike action is over two separate disputes. Some are in dispute about a pension issue and the other branches are in dispute about pay, inequality and workload. So negotiations over both disputes are currently happening, and actually what we've seen is that employers actually only really want to negotiate with us when we're on picket lines. There's been more talks in the last fortnight than there had been, for instance, in the last 2 months. Negotiations are constructive. I can't really say much about what's happening in them at the minute because it's all in confidence, but without the branches that are out on strike having lots of people on picket lines, the employers would not be as willing to talk to us as they are. I think what's really important about this dispute is that universities, if and when they can, always like to try and weaponise students against university staff, and what we've seen in this dispute is that that just hasn't been able to happen because students really understand that investment in staff is investment in them. They really understand what a reduction in spending has meant for them in universities, whether that's not enough time with their staff, not enough time in the library, or not enough space rather. And the same sorts of issues that impact on students impact on staff. So we don't have enough time to do our work. We don't have enough time to spend with students. We have gender pay gaps that run at about 19%. We have a pay gap for black staff which runs at 14%. You know, so I think students have really understood what these disputes are about because they know what underinvestment in education means for them as well as staff.
This is Steve Charlish at Montfort University. Here we are at the picket line on the third day of the strike. Strength is high, spirits are high, solidarity amongst the staff and students. As you can see behind me, there is another 2 weeks of strike action to go, and there's plenty of support here today. The University College Vice Chancellor has declined to be interviewed, and therefore I am just reading from the statement from the Employers Association, which is the UCEA, and they say that the 5% claim by the union is unaffordable as some of the universities are showing deficits in their accounts at the moment.